Welcome back, all you future debt-free millionaires. Hey, this is Zach Edwards with another Debt-Free Millionaire podcast and personal finance course. Today is a bonus round. Actually, what happened was this week in our book, we actually had 3 lessons. The third lesson, we actually had to break into 2 different days because I went so long-winded, but there's so much information that needed to be put out. Today is also one of those days, but it's a bonus round because there is no other lesson for Friday. So I'm going to give you a bonus round on what the state of the economy is right now and what is happening with car prices and rent. Those are 2 things that you're going to really experience when you leave home. So if you're just graduating high school, you're going to see this, and this is going to be the top of the list of things to worry about or wonder about. Don't worry about it. We will help you through this process. And the reason why I say that is because we're going to walk you through each step of these parts. But at first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what is happening with the economy today. Okay, so first off, we talked about this before, but I'm going to bring this up one more time. This is about what's happening with Social Security, just so you know.
We may soon be headed for disaster. Financial guru Dave Ramsey has some advice for retirees thinking about collecting soon.
Don't hold out for the largest Social Security check possible, is what Dave says. Instead, begin collecting benefits as early as 62 years old, but only if you invest the whole check. Our next guest says he's absolutely right.
Jade Warshaw is here, and she works for Dave Ramsey's Ramsey Solutions. Jade, just explain more of this approach. But Dave seems to suggest you can still count on Social Security despite the fact that, according to this new report, up until 2033, there's going to be an automatic benefit cut of 21%.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Listen, if you're trying to jump from working to retirement, Social Security should not be your parachute. As it stands, it's only going to account for 40% of what people were used to making. And as you said earlier, in 2034, it might not even exist anymore.
So I'm going to end it right there. So this is a big thing to understand, that it's not just me saying this. It's not just like a few people saying this. It's like everyone saying, including the board that watches over the Social Security, that it might not be there. If we put all of our eggs in one basket, meaning that you're only dependent on the government when you get old enough, the money's not going to be there. Why is that? Again, if you were listening to the last 2 days worth of our podcast, you'd know that one of the big things is the fact that we don't have enough children. People are not having enough kids to pay for Social Security. As you know, as I've told you, it is a Ponzi scheme. It only works as long as people are still investing in it. But if there's not enough people to invest in Social Security, there won't be enough money to actually do it. That's just the pure fact. Unless they change something dramatically fairly soon, by 2033, we might not actually have a Social Security. That means I won't have a Social Security because I'm only at 42. I'd be at 55 at that time. Sorry, no. I'd be about 52 at the time. So if that's true, I still have another 10 years before I can claim it. And you think if it's going to fail by then, that they're going to actually fix it by 10 years later? I highly doubt it. I don't trust the government to be able to pay for it. And neither should you. You should be self-reliant. You should be able to find ways of making yourself reliant on what you can afford and what you can pay for from your own earnings. And we're going to help you to find all these earnings, all the potential for you to be able to make more money. And not just make more money now, but make more money in the future. So let's go on to clip number 2. This one is about the car industry. Listen up.
In the market for a new car, sticker shock might curb your enthusiasm. You'll notice car lots have more inventory now than they did during the pandemic, but car loans are pumping the brakes on quick sales. I talk with financial literacy author Janae Adams about how to speed forward with car goals and come out financially ahead.
In 2020 and 2021, the car market was on a roller coaster, and it's still on a roller coaster today. Mainly during that time, they did not have enough cars. Everybody was buying cars, they were moving around, they couldn't fly, and so prices went up. Well, then the Fed pretty much needed to cool down the economy. And so guess what? They raised the rates. And now that is the issue. So car buyers, if you're trying to get a car, you need to be a little bit more responsible and a little bit doing more research in order to get that car and make a great financial decision.
Yeah, we're looking here at a graphic. Used car loans more expensive than new car loans. Can you explain why and how it correlates with inflation?
Yes, definitely. So a new car interest rate is at 12%, while used car interest rate is at 13%, which is a big change from 2020 and 2021 when we seen the 5% as far as the interest rate was concerned. Well, guess what? The Federal Reserve needed to calm the market down. They needed to calm the economy down, so they raised the interest rate. And so that is why you're seeing the 12 and 13%. By them doing that, now car dealers have more cars on the lot, but at a higher price.
Okay, so according to her, there's more cars on the lot. So, as an example, we were going out for my daughter to get a car. Now, I didn't actually go out with her. It was my ex-wife and her husband went out and went to go check out cars. They couldn't find many cars on the car lot. There were some cars, but they were over the price tag that she was able to afford. So it was like $3,500. Well, so in that $3,500, we decided, or they decided, well, we all talked about it. Instead of going to the dealerships, we should try private dealers, people that were doing private sales. So from their houses, that people that don't have businesses and such. So they went out again. Interesting enough, this was really sad, but my daughter wasn't scammed, but did not receive the notice from the owners of all the issues with the car. Usually this would be called a lemon law, or a lemon, but it's slightly above a lemon because it still drives, and it will probably drive for a fair amount of time left. But the problem is that, and I've told this on the podcast multiple times, bring your car to a mechanic. Have the mechanic look over the whole thing and tell you if it's worth the money that you're going to pay for it. The mechanic that we went to said it was not, because of three main things. One, the undercarriage was completely rusted. So it might he said it's safe to drive right now, but for a little while, and then it's going to start failing. So some of the rust is going to start eating through the metal. Rust is one of the worst things for a used car. If you have rust, if you just look on the undercarriage and see rust caked on the bottom of the car, that's a really bad thing. If you see it in the doors, that's also a really bad thing. Your paint starts peeling up. The more the paint peels up and the moisture that gets to it, the more the rust will deteriorate your whole door. That's right. The door will actually break down if rust is underneath the paint, to make it so that it starts to break off. And if it breaks off, it means more air comes into the car. So as you're driving, you're listening to the road all the way down. You're going to have to crank up your music if you're going to listen to music. It's not a good thing. There's two other things that had to do with mechanical things, such as she had a check engine light. Well, the check engine light would have been a fine thing if it was for the CO sensor, the O2 sensor that the dealership, the private dealership, the owners that have a dealership license, when they sold it to them, they said it was an O2 sensor. No, that check engine light was actually for the timing belt, or the timing chain, which is inside the engine, which would cost them about $1,200 to $2,000. Again, bought the car for $3,000, $3,500. So if we had gone to the mechanic, we would have actually seen all these issues beforehand and then made the decision, maybe we need to wait a little bit longer. Here's the big thing. We are always in a rush. We have to get something now. If we go out for a house, a lot of people say, well, I need a house tomorrow. You don't need a house tomorrow. And if you want to buy houses and you need a house tomorrow, you will be either scammed or you'll buy something that you regret in the future. Take your time. Go through, especially when it comes to cars. They are smaller purchases, but with a car, there's no coming back. You make the purchase, you drive it off the property owner's property, and there's no more selling it back. At least with a house, you have days to go through and inspect the house, to do all these things to make sure that it is right and ready for you to move in. So with a car, in this video you saw, or at least heard, you heard that the car, if you were getting a car loan, it's now increased from 2020, it was at 5%. It's now skyrocketed to 12 and 13%. 12% for a new car, 13% for a used car. And that's because the feds increased their rates because of inflation and trying to bring down the market. By increasing interest rates, less people are willing to buy. When people are less willing to buy, the prices drop. And also the Fed will say, hey, inflation is now dropped because less demand on something means the price will go up. And if the price goes down or does not go up more each month, then that's a reduction in inflation. And that's what the Fed is looking for. If we can get the inflationary numbers down, the Fed will drop the interest rate. That's it. That's the promise. That is what they're trying to do right now. So, just giving you a little heads up, I told you that everyone's saying that we're going to get 3 rate cuts this year. I said we will likely not have any rate cuts. If anything, we might have 1. Well, we've already passed the first one when we were supposed to have 1. Inflation is now going up. We were supposed to have 2 more, and they're saying, oh, that we might have 2 more. But the problem is that we don't actually have inflation going down. It's still, as far as we know, still going up. And so we probably might not have one of those inflationary cuts, those Fed cuts, interest rate cuts. There you go. But at the same time, if we don't have that interest rate cut, hopefully people will stop spending so much money. But if they don't stop spending so much money, we won't even have that last rate cut. If we don't have that last rate cut, 0 rate cuts this year means the economy is still doing horribly. And because the economy is doing horribly, all of a sudden, we're still paying more. Inflation is still going up. Until we can get inflation down, the interest rates will not go up. The interest rates will not go down as well. Okay, so let's go to the next.
What's going on, YouTube family? Welcome to Automotive Life. My name is Lucky, and today we're going to be talking about the used car market. Now, the only thing uglier than the used car market is the shirt that I'm wearing, but let's get into it. So a lot has changed since we did our last update video. There's all these economic factors impacting the used car market. Obviously, we're in a recession. We had the auto loan crisis that's getting out of control. Record high delinquencies, record high defaults, people not wanting to spend an extravagant amount of money on everything because inflation is out of control. All these things are affecting the car market in different ways, and some ways are going to surprise you. We're going to talk about some of the cars that are going up in value and a lot of the cars that are going down. So let's go ahead and talk about the markets that are dropping the fastest right now. That is EVs, luxury cars, and luxury SUVs. Now, EVs are pretty obvious because obviously nobody really wants them, but the fact that people are worried about depreciation. So many people are waiting in line for months, if not years, to get their EV just to find out that it's worth 30 to 50% less. If you bought an Audi e-tron GT last year and you go to sell it this year, you lost 50% of its value like that. If you bought a Tesla Plaid, you lost 35 to 40% of your value in 1 year. And these are some of the things that are affecting the EV market. So if you're looking at buying a used EV, I would say now would be the time. With the tax savings along with the decreased price, it starts to seem like a good idea for certain people to jump into the market. I strongly recommend do not buy a brand new EV, especially when so many of them are basically getting dropped at the auction for next to nothing. I just saw a Fisker Ocean go for like $23,000 or $24,000 at auction this morning, which is absolutely crazy. So you're starting to see all these EVs start to pile up. Now, not only does this affect the ones that are 1 to 2 years old, if you're looking for maybe one that's 3 to 5 years old, I'm seeing some of the EVs in our areas going for under $15K, which is a pretty good deal, I think, if you're looking for something to just buzz around town.
Okay, he's talking a lot about EVs. We're not going to go into what cars to go into, but just know that it is actually not the best time to buy a new car. New cars, you got the high prices and also the rate that you're going to be paying for a loan as well. Again, we're at 12% for a brand new car. Buying a used one might be a time. If you are trying to get an EV, buy it used less than 50,000 miles or less than at least 100,000 miles where the battery still has a warranty. Because as soon as you go over 100,000 miles, that battery is probably going to go out at some point soon. And when that battery goes out, it's going to cost you at least $5,000 to $10,000 to replace that battery. For a car, look at this. This EV supposedly is only $27,400. $27,400 that you'd be paying for a used EV after the first year. Problem is it's not just going to be that. It's going to be another $10,000 above if you don't have it under warranty, the battery at least. So going into other cars, he's going to tell you that the most economical cars, the hybrids, the ones that are both gas and electric, those are actually going up in value because they have both the gas and the electric, which people do want electric. Like he was saying, that people don't want EVs, but people do want electric. They just don't want to be subservient, be a slave to the fact that you have to take 45 minutes to charge your car. And if you don't charge it right, like maybe during the night, maybe you drive a long distance and then all of a sudden your car dies and you have to wait 45 minutes to charge again. That is the biggest issue. That is one of the biggest issues. Sorry, my dog is over here trying to get my attention. Go, go, go. Thank you. Okay. Let's go forward with the next clip. Now, we're going to leave the car industry. Just so you know, again, we will walk you through some more things when it comes to buying a used car, but please do not buy them and don't get it checked by a mechanic. Almost every time you will find things that they lied about, the owners, because I'm guessing they had a full inspection done when they bought the car, because they needed to figure out what they needed to fix, but they had links that were the wrong ones. They had rusted out hangers, all these different things. Do your research first. Do not rush into buying a car. You do not have to buy it. It could take you 2 weeks. It could take you 2 months. Be okay with waiting for your car for 2 months to find the right one. Okay, so moving on into rent. Okay, this is another thing that's huge right now because of what's happening. And we're actually going to go into the reason why this is happening, but let's listen to people from New York and see what they say.
On a lovely live look at the Manhattan skyline. Isn't she a beaut?
Yes.
Well, that skyline actually the subject of this next story. We are going to be talking about a problem that is unique to New York, not unique to New York.
Yeah, I was looking at that shot and I was counting up how much money was captured in rent in that shot. It is mind-blowing to think about.
It is unique to New York. Sorry, I was...
No, I know what
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Picking up what I'm putting down.
Absolutely.
We are, because it is unique. Our rents are just so high. We say that all the time. Last year ended up being a pretty good time to rent for Americans versus buying, but average wages across the country grew faster than rents nationwide in 2023. But to Shirlene's point, it was different here in New York. Very different story. Average wages in the city increased about 1.2% last year. The median rent soared by about 8.6%. That's about 7 times the increase in pay for New Yorkers, the largest such gap in the entire country.
So we know rent is high, and then you see your paycheck and you're thinking, how can I make this work? Well, the numbers first crunched by StreetEasy economist Kenny Lee, and we have Mr. Lee here to dig into what these numbers mean. So what struck you the most out of this analysis?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Taking a step back, asking rents have been surging across the country in recent years. But wages didn't really keep pace. The silver lining, however, is that last year was actually a brighter spot for renters in the United States. Wages grew faster than rents nationally and in almost half of major cities in the US, as the rental market really came to an even keel. But the opposite, however, was true in New York City, where the gap between rent growth and wage growth was actually bigger than in any other large cities in the US.
And actually, they've somewhat disputed the fact that wages went up so much. They did in certain industries, but the other industries, they actually went down. Such as, actually right now, you can see it in California. The wages went up for California for fast food to $20 an hour. But thousands of people lost their job at these fast food restaurants because the companies can't afford it. So the food market, the food industry, the fast food industry goes on a very thin amount of income profit off of each sandwich that's made. I'm talking like pennies for each sandwich that's sold. So because of that, when all of a sudden all your workers are now $20 an hour, and you're already having a thin line between what your expenses are and your revenue is, that's a thin line, and all of a sudden your expenses skyrocket, what happens? Obviously, your prices for your burgers and everything will have to go up. And so a lot of people lost their jobs. So yes, wages went up, jobs went down. And it's funny enough because people like to say, oh no, the job market is great. No. If you actually read the data, it's not that the employment, the jobs went up. It's that a lot of the jobs that were being in there, a huge portion of the jobs in the jobs report were all part-time jobs. Part-time jobs, the wages are less than full-time work. Full-time work wages went up, but people became unemployed and had to take the part-time jobs in order to survive. So because of all these things, this is not that accurate. I'm going to just say that accurate because there's so much more to it. We'll go into this later on. But as he's saying, wages are down right now and rent is up. Why? Why is that? Let's keep listening. Let's find another one. Okay, so we're going to go to San Diego now. So other side of the country. First we were in New York. Now we're going to be in San Diego.
Developers are building more housing in San Diego, but renters say they are still seeing these high prices. Today, some housing advocates are calling out not so affordable apartments in San Diego.
CBS 8's Regina Yurita joining us live in North Park now, where many new buildings are under construction. What's the latest there, Regina?
Yeah, guys, and today's news conference was really to break down this report that shows significant gaps when it comes to affordable housing here in San Diego. According to the report, renters need to earn at least $48 an hour to afford the average monthly rent, clearly showing that the average earnings are not keeping up with the increasing rent. So this is really affecting a lot of San Diegans. Take a listen.
There's a shortfall of 134,500 affordable homes for lower income renters in San Diego County.
And this morning, the California Housing Partnership and the San Diego Housing Federation released the annual report. It also shows the city and county are behind on shelter beds. There's also a 13% decrease in state and federal funding for housing. Now,
Okay, so this is interesting because what is happening in California right now? Why is there less housing than there was before? Is there a lot more people? Yes, there are. Why is there a lot more people? It's not because of births, because people are leaving. U.S. born individuals are leaving California hand over fist. So who's replacing that? Oh yeah, that's right. Immigrants from Mexico and other places, China, other places from around the world, all over South America, every continent is coming here to the United States. California is actually one of the worst. It has one of the worst issues. You have homeless living on the streets in their own feces. Yes, that means poop. Feces means poop. You got that happening. You have veterans coming back from war or such where they have PTSD and they can't work. They're also living on the streets. But who lives in the housing? Let's see. That would be illegal immigrants. People that come over illegally into the United States and are getting housing. Now, again, we've said this plenty of times. If you want to come over illegally, please do. We need the help up here. There's always a space to get more work, but it has to come in at a certain rate for us not to be able to lose our labor market. So if there's no jobs for the naturally born citizens, then all of a sudden, what happens? All of a sudden, the government has to pay that check plus the money that they're paying towards illegal immigrants. And right now, under the Biden administration, it's basically an open border. You can come in. They're not going to stop you. They're going to give you a court date 5 or 6 years in the future to be able to see if you're actually worthy or if you're actually able to have asylum here. Now, the problem is that a lot of people are not coming for asylum. They are coming for work. They're coming for a better economy. But the problem is what happens when they take all the jobs? All of a sudden, there's no jobs for other people. People that were born here and did everything legally. All those that broke the law are getting benefits from it. All those people that are living on the streets who would be staying in a homeless shelter are no longer able to stay in a homeless shelter because of what? Because of illegal immigration. Again, it's not even just from Mexico or South America. It's from all over the world because they're not doing it legally. When we do it legally, we actually have ways of having certain numbers that we can be able to afford. If we can't afford, you have New York, you have Chicago, you have Colorado. I just heard a huge report today on the immigrants in Colorado. They're actually demanding things from the government. We want this, we want this, we want this. It's like, wait a second, you came in here and broke our laws and you automatically want all these things? I'm sorry. Why would we do that? But yet they're probably going to get it because it's an election year and because politicians are scum. It's funny because I was just at one of my rentals and I was talking to one of the families. I love all my renters. I have a good relationship with, especially this couple. They're 83 years old. They just had their 63rd wedding anniversary. Amazing couple. They were talking about the shootings that they hear every once in a while in the area. And I'm sorry, I wish there's any way I could fix that, but I can't. But they were also talking about how one of the presidential candidates basically reported that he had a worm in his brain years ago, and it ate part of the brain and then died in his brain. Later on, I had to look this up. I don't think I heard this at the point. Come to find out, he put it in his divorce decree or his divorce arguments for his second divorce that he wouldn't be able to pay a certain amount of alimony or child support because of his cognitive disabilities. Wait a second. You're running for president and you're having these issues? Now, of course, he says that he got his memory back and everything works fine. But there's a question there. Okay, so we have two very old presidential candidates and we've got one that has part of a brain missing. That worries me. America, does that worry you? Okay, at least we know that, you know what? One is cognitively impaired. We already know that, our current president. There's issues with him becoming older. And I don't want to say that old people are going to go through this all the time, but he is. Visually, you can see it. We have the former president who has had issues in the past as well. At the same time, not as many as the current president. And then we have Kennedy, who is basically telling us these new things. And actually, it wasn't him. Somebody had leaked this from his divorce arguments that happened years ago. So this is very interesting. Okay, why did I get to this? I actually don't know why I got into this. Oh, because right now we have illegal immigrants coming into this country at alarming rates. And not just ones that have good intentions, but also ones that have bad intentions. And what are we doing? We're not stopping them at the border. It's actually been proven that we're releasing them into the population. Those that have broken the laws and been sent back are now coming back over the border and be giving a court date for a future day. Wait a second. That person should be flagged and thrown in jail for one or sent back. But no, our administration has let them back in. So this is what's causing a lot of the issues in New York, which we just heard about. Rent is going up because there's no places to rent. If there's no places to rent, supply and demand. When demand goes up, because there's not that many houses to be able to rent, what happens to the price? The price goes up. When the price goes up, our expenses go up. So again, listen to this podcast. We're going to help you to overcome these things. But let's go to the next one. That was both New York and California, San Diego. Now let's go to Pennsylvania. Okay.
I just came here because it's an easy lifestyle, a comfortable lifestyle. Affordable lifestyle, absolutely.
At least it was affordable when Bob Biesecker moved into Douglas Village in Berks County a few years ago. The rent for the land that his home sits on has been increased by $75 a month each of the last 2 years.
So that's 15% increase in 2022 and a 13% increase in 2023.
There are more than 2,200 manufactured housing communities in Pennsylvania, and this is one of them. Manufactured homes are...
Wait a minute. Did he say 15%? that's higher than inflation right now. So even though inflation is supposedly come down to like 4%, 4 point something, or 3.9 or no. 4, we'll say 4%. 4%. Even though that it went down to 4%, they're still paying 13% on housing. Why is that? Again, there is not enough housing to afford everyone that's coming into the market. Why aren't builders building? It's because they're not making the sales. If they're not going to be able to sell the houses, why build them? They're building houses as fast as they can, as much as they can afford. If you can't make money off of it, why would they build it? So the next step that people are going to say, well, so why doesn't the government build? Well, for one thing, they are the most inefficient with money that you can see anybody. The government is the most inefficient than any other person or any other organization you can see, except for those that work off the government funding, which is why the government is inefficient. So if there's not housing, the price is going to go up. The demand goes up, the prices go up. Same thing with affordable housing. When affordable housing fills up, the government gets to decide, but they're going to basically have to increase the price because you have to afford the housing. The government is affording the housing. They're subsidizing the people living in the affordable housing. The less ability to get into those subsidized houses, the more people that will be suffering. But we're going to keep going. What about, now this is housing rents. What about rentals for small businesses? Let's check this one out.
For the first time since the pandemic, small business owners have the highest national rent delinquency rate. According to alignable.com, 43% of small business renters were not able to pay their rent in full or on time in April. That's up 4% from March, and the highest since March of 2021, when the world was in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Joining me now are three small business owners. Andy Ellert, owner of the Manda Machine Company. Kate constantly lament to me the struggles with hiring, keeping people, retaining. Mimi, I want to start with you. There we go. You own a brick and mortar store in Charleston, South Carolina. Have you struggled to pay your rent or other bills?
We have. For the past 6 months, it's been a challenge every few months of, do we pay payroll or do we pay our rent? And it's a very real challenge that a lot of other small business owners in different spaces are voicing to me as well.
And Mimi, what's the source of that challenge?
We've seen a decrease in our online business and online traffic, and just engaging with our customers and cutting through the noise and distraction where shoppers are going to big box stores that we just genuinely cannot compete with. And we're seeing kind of a passive behavior from our customers where they aren't making an effort to shop small, shop local as strong.
Okay, so then that's an issue. It's not just that they're going for shop small, shop local. It's the fact that people are stopping spending. Now, remember what I said at the beginning. The Fed is saying, stop spending. We're going to increase interest rates so that you stop your spending, because when demand goes down, what happens to the price? Like the opposite of what we were saying earlier, the price goes down. Demand goes down, price goes down. Price goes down, at least where there's like less inflation. It might not. If it goes up from $1, or let's say something was selling for $5 in 2020, is now selling for $10 in 2024. Most likely, it's not going to go back down to $5. But if the rate of increase stops, if it stays at $10, then all of a sudden, that's where the Fed will say, hey, now we will actually put money to, we'll drop interest rates so that you can afford things again, and then the market will pick up again. But because of this inflation that's happening, because of all the give outs that the government gives, the reduced value of $1, all of a sudden we're paying more. So I'm going to skip ahead again. We always go over. I mean, hopefully you don't mind. But let's go outside the country. Is this just happening in the United States? What do they say in Australia?
Australia's median rent has hit a record high of $627 a week.
Wait. Did she say $627 a week? Oh, a week. I was thinking a month. Wow. Okay, so that's 4 times. The medium is $2,500 a month. That's the medium. That's the middle area. taking off the extreme highs and extreme lows, that's the middle area. $2,400. Okay, I thought I wanted that rate, $627 a month, but actually it came out to each week. Yikes.
That is up 8.5% on April last year. Okay, time to unpack all the data. We've got CoreLogic's Eliza Owen to join us. Good morning to you, Eliza.
Well, actually, she takes a very long time to get to the actual data, but let's unpack it for you. What happens when inflation goes up in Saudi Arabia? Does anyone else really feel it? No. What happens if it goes to Russia? No, except for those that buy oil from Russia or buy oil from Saudi Arabia. What happens if it goes up in Brazil? No, except maybe the food or the produce that come from there. What happens if the United States, their interest rates go up? If the interest rates in the United States go up, that's when everyone else feels it around the country because we are a reserved currency. Well, this is also when they buy more of our bonds because we're promising them, we've talked about bonds, it's basically a guaranteed payback of a certain amount. The government, if somebody buys one of our bonds and gives us money to pay for basically printing more money, then we will give them a guaranteed amount of money based on the interest rates. The interest rates are high, people are going to buy all these bonds. The interest rates are high in the United States, they're also going to be higher other countries as well. So everyone's feeling this, and it's not because we're doing horribly, but it's because we're doing horribly. It's not because we're doing things to the other countries. We don't mean to do anything to the other countries. But if our rates go up, their rates will most likely go up as well because of being the financial center of the world right now. Now, as you know, BRICS, B-R-I-C, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and 43 other countries that want to sign up, and there's already like 20 countries in there. So about 60 countries all want to sign up to BRICS and having a new reserve currency. So they are getting more strength behind them because our administration is not showing the leadership that we were told we were going to get, especially in foreign affairs. You see what's happening in Ukraine? Would that have happened under Trump? I think it's less likely. Might have still, but less likely. Would Israel have happened? Less likely, because people were so afraid of Trump, they didn't know what he was going to do if they did any kind of attack. So in this next election, is that something we want? Possibly. Be able to have peace in the world? Yeah, that'd be great because they don't know how Trump is going to react. Yet, funny enough, Trump is very much against war and did not start any wars. He's one of the only presidents in a long time that has not started a war. There was wars under Obama. There was wars under Biden. There's wars under Clinton, both Bushes, and so on and so forth. Trump was the only one in the last few years. And again, I'm not a supporter of any presidential candidate, except when it comes to finances, then I might favor one over the other. And so I'm not going to say which one I favor. I'm going to let you guys decide. This is for you to understand how the economy works. So this is Australia. I want one more. This one is very important because this is our neighbor to the north. What did they say?
Well, the increase in immigration and rising interest rates is putting more pressure on renters. Rent prices continue to soar right across the country. And according to a new report, Canada posted new highs last month. CTV's Hannah Schmidt joins us live with more details on that report tonight. And Hannah, we just hit a record high in June.
That's right, Alex. According to rentals.ca, the average rent in the country is $2,042. That is the biggest month-over-month increase we've seen so far this year.
June 2023 was a record month for rent prices across Canada.
Well, the rental market is certainly under a lot of pressure. So broader supply and demand imbalances continue to keep competition quite fierce.
The increase follows interest rate hikes and population expansion.
We could end up in a situation where longtime residents.
So all those other videos were actually from this week. Somehow this one snuck in. I don't know how it did, but this one snuck in from last year. But just so you know, Canada is continuing to increase as well. I had another one here that I was going to show, and I decided to show this one instead. That one I know that was from this week. Last year it was moderate. it's even worse up there now. And what did they mention? Immigration is going up. What happens if all those people coming into the country all of a sudden start taking all the lower rents? It means there's no more rentals. So what happens to price? Again, last time, when the demand goes up, the price goes up. When the demand goes up, price goes up. When there's no houses, there's more demand for housing. No housing, demand goes up. Price goes up. Get it? Okay, I hope so. Because that's one of the most important things to understand. This is what happens with our economy. So what can we do to make this not affect us? Stay tuned for more of our podcasts because we will go through each of these of how you can overcome these struggles. That's right. We will actually tell you how you can be self-reliant and not have to worry about what's happening in the economy because your economy is what's going to be the most important. And your economy is going to be what is controlling your life and how you do things. So stay tuned for more Debt-Free Millionaire, and we will catch you next week. I hope you have a great weekend, and take care. Bye-bye.